Hi guys. I have been working on for the last week a Titanfall prop. It's the Smart Pistol. Specifically, it's the Smart Pistol Mk5 from Titanfall 1. Initially started to do this as a static prop, just a kind of fixed thing that I could hold and have as part of a costume, but it kind of very quickly got out of hand on me. I started adding lights and sound, and it got very complicated very quickly. And so I figured the easiest way to kind of show my work was to do it with a little bit of a breakdown video rather than 1,000 pictures, although I will probably still post 1,000 pictures because I'm quite proud of this. This is the, as I said, Smart Pistol Mk5 from Titanfall 1. And Ryan, is it Ryan Lastimosa? Yeah, is the art director on Titanfall, and he has this up on his ArtStation page. It is the model from Titanfall 1's game, and I use this as a reference and a starting point. There is actually a Smart Pistol in Titanfall 2, which is this one here. I don't like it as much. It's the Mark 6, and I just don't like the angular design of it. It doesn't really do it for me. But this one I quite enjoy. The idea behind the Smart Pistol is it's ostensibly, I guess, a Glock. I don't really know my guns that well, but it's some kind of gun with extra futuristic tech bits on the front of the barrel that do some like auto lock-on things in the game. The idea is you aim it at a guy, it locks on, you pull the trigger, the bullets home in and hit him in the head, and you get a kill. It is totally infuriating to be killed by. It is also entirely hilarious to use and very fun to play with. It's a very iconic piece of Titanfall kit. So I wanted to model this up, and as I said, it just kind of got out of hand. So let's start breaking this down a little bit, and hopefully this will go through and answer some of the questions I've gotten. It is sectioned up into four main pieces. We have the muzzle, we have the mid section of the gun, we have the rear section of the gun, and then we have the flashlight laser accessory mount thing. I'm going to toggle a couple layers off here real quick so that we can do the cross-sectional look of the gun, and I'll just do kind of component by component, explain what things are and why they're there. The whole model has been divided up as sensibly and designed as sensibly as I could so that I could easily 3D print everything, which means everything has flat sides that will sit face down on my print bed. And well, let's look at some of the systems we've got here. So the whole thing is going to be powered on the inside, and actually let me turn some of these in the way components off here. There we go. The whole thing is powered by a 9-volt battery in the handle, and the battery actually sits inside the where is it? The magazine bit at the bottom here. I use a 9-volt battery rather than a rechargeable or lithium polymer battery, just because they're easy, they're available, they're everywhere, and with a lithium lipo battery, generally there's going to be a point in time where you have to just leave it alone and let it charge. With this, it's like, well, you know what, you're at a con, you need to change the batteries, you just open it up, pop a new one in, and go about your day, because 9-volt batteries are everywhere. It is sized to fit one of these wire clip-on things that you can see me holding in the camera here, and if you look, there is actually a notch kind of carved, I'll toggle the battery off, there's a notch carved down the side of the 9-volt area, which is so that I can route the wires along the side of the battery with it. All of this, let's just close this handle back up here. There we go. All of this is covered by a plug, which goes on the bottom here. Let's just slide that out, -20. And you can see the plug has the kind of square interfacing, so it will just snug right into the inside of the barrel there. Excuse me. There are screw holes. There's 4 screw holes in the bottom of the magazine base that thread into screw holes in the actual body of the gun itself. So really, these are all sized for M2, which are metric 2mm screws. You should be able to take it apart fairly easily with whatever tools you've got available, swap the battery, and just close it back up and go about your day. So let's switch that back off and move a little bit further up the body of the gun here. Over here we have the on-off switch, so to speak. And I used a slide switch here, which I actually have on my desk, which I dropped, and now I have. Right here, it's a very simple little slide switch, and the reason that's going to be the on-off switch for the whole gun, is you'll notice on this side we have a safety hinge. This safety hinge is, or paddle, I don't know exactly what the gun nomenclature is, but on a normal gun, this would be the thing that engages the ability to actually fire, so it would slide up and down. And if you look at the model of the gun, specifically here, there's two spots. There's two holes for, I guess, LEDs. There's a green LED and a red LED, which would, I guess, indicate on-off firing modes. So I've got two 3mm holes here. You're going to put a green LED in the top, red LED in the bottom. When the paddle is down, it's going to be in the off position. And this hinges through, let's see if I can go to a wireframe view, maybe that'll help a little bit. We've got this paddle here, or this, I don't know what you want to call it. It's like a toggle almost. It fits around the head of the switch. It is attached to the pivot that is also attached through the body of the gun to this, the safety on the outside. And the idea is pretty simply that you should be able to rotate this up, the paddle will move up, and then the switch will change positions. So just to give you an illustration of how that is supposed to work, I think it was -9 rather, and then this moves -9, and then this would flip around like that. And let's do that in the non-wireframe view so you can kind of see how this is supposed to work. So the idea is these will all be attached together, and so when the paddle on the outside, this thing moves up, this moves forward, and the switch will toggle positions back and forth. Let's see. Alright, so all of that is optimistic. I've designed it with, I think, the best tolerances I can get out of my 3D printer. I'm going to toggle this off real quick and just show you the way the safety, this thing is one piece here. The way the safety paddle actually attaches on is, if you look at this side, there's almost like a screwdriver head cut out of this thing. And there's an M2 screw hole right down the middle as well. So on the back side of the safety paddle on both sides is a matching recess that should be able to, you should just be able to engage those things together and then put a screw through the outside to screw it to the pivot pin. And then that is all offset, if you take a look here, aft left, here we go. This is all offset onto one side of the handle. This whole gun was pretty much designed just to have everything set on this side. I can do all the electronics, wire everything up, and it will all be on the left side of the gun so that I can just take the right side, close it up, and be done with it, rather than trying to wire things across both sides of the gun, because it was going to get too complicated otherwise. So that's the way the safety on-off switch works, which is why it's in line with the battery here. This hole, actually, just to elaborate a little bit on why there's a cavity here, this is just so that the 9-volt battery has a little extra wire lead that can kind of coil around itself in there, so you can pull it in and out, do whatever you need to, get the battery out of there. Just a little room for some extra wires. So the power switch is going to route power from down here up through these channels that have been cut into the body of the gun and around. This is just going to go straight past this whole trigger assembly. The power is going to go up to here, which is going to be where the electronics are. We'll get to that. The next thing I want to actually show you guys is the trigger assembly over here. Now this is designed to function, and this is built around a snap action switch, which I have holding up on the camera here. It's a really satisfying snap action switch in particular. This one has a nice click to it. It's something I have just as a component for one of my 3D printer electronics parts. And so this switch is designed to be able to rotate 25 degrees on a trigger pull. It has a spring here, which is attached to the top of the trigger. There's an M2 screw hole. Let me turn on the wireframe so you can see. M2 screw hole through the body of this, so you can just screw it down onto the trigger. And also an M2 screw hole right here, which I guess you can just cap with a washer, but this is meant for a 10mm spring that's already a bit stretched out so that the trigger stays in the forward position. And let's see if I can just demonstrate the idea behind this really quick. This is supposed to have about 25 degrees, minus 25 degrees range of motion here. So when you pull the trigger back, you'll see it goes from this position forward, and then this slide will move 15 degrees, minus 15, excuse me, back, and that should be the click, that should engage the switch. This switch will basically then determine when the trigger has been pulled. And I'm going to use that for things like playing audio for a gun sound. I've already exported the Titanfall Smart pistol bang bang noises. It's going to flash lights. It's basically just the trigger for the effects. And then when you let go, the whole thing should pretty much just return to its default position, and it's got a little stopper here, so it can't go any further back. So that's the trigger assembly here, and these are the holes for the 3mm LEDs by the safety switch on the outside. So you've just got a little channel cut here. Let's move forward a little bit to talk about the electronics section of the gun, because this is where things get a little more complicated. This is the heart of what makes all the audio-visual effects work. Here we have a space for an Arduino Pro Mini, which is this little sucker right here. Then I have budgeted space right in front of it for an Adafruit Audio Fx. Where'd it go? Hang on. Adafruit Audio Fx Mini soundboard. And the idea with this thing is it can be loaded with the gun noises, and it actually has an audio output. This will then go to this device here, which is going to be the Adafruit 2.5 watt audio amplifier, which is just going to make the sound louder. It's basically just there to enhance the volume. And all of that is going to pipe through to the front of the gun, which we'll talk about. You may notice from the things I've been holding up that these have mounting holes on them, which have been actually... It was fairly difficult to do this. There aren't very precise measurements on Adafruit's website. In my experience, when they say, oh, well, this thing is 20 millimeters, it might actually be like 20.9 millimeters. It's got a little bit of play, and I've tried to measure everything I have with calipers, but I don't physically have these parts. So what I did was I opened up the Eagle circuit board schematics and used those to find the placement of all the components, including the dimensions of the outside of the board and the mounting holes. So the Audio Fx board has had, I'll just toggle it off here, it has screw holes and a mounting post for M2 screws, so that you can just screw it right onto the side of the inside of the gun. Same with the audio amp. If you look here, there's 4 mounting posts and holes, even though, in fairness, the audio amp only has 2 holes. It's just so I can position it either way around in there that I want to. The Arduino, unfortunately, does not have mounting holes, the Pro Mini. However, what I decided to do was just build like these little corner enclosures, so it should just be able to kind of snap in there. Regardless of whether or not these are the correct spacings, you can always just kind of hot glue these parts in. Once everything's wired up, if you just hot glue it in, it really doesn't matter. But I wanted to be a little bit more precise about how I was doing this, so I figured I'd give it a shot, and I think this should work pretty well. Excuse me. Let's move forward to the front of the gun. We have the muzzle here, and the muzzle takes a bit of describing. It was done in this fashion as a single piece because once you have it like this, you should be able to break it. Oh, hang on. Let's get this. There we go. You should be able to print this all as one piece. And the idea behind why we want to do that, let's put the cross section on here. This is going to be where the speaker lives. There is a couple things going on up here. There's holes through the front of the gun that go straight into the back. This is like an acoustic chamber almost. The speaker's going to be positioned here behind this this stopper, or this rail, I guess, whatever you want to call it. You just insert it in the back. There's a channel cut from here all the way across the top and down into in front of the speaker. This is for wiring, because right in front of this, let me turn the cross section off. Right in front of that, you'll see there's actually a hole, like a post in a hole, and that is there so that I can take a bright white LED or red LED, whatever, a 5mm LED, and pop it in that hole. and face it forward out the barrel so that when you pull the trigger, it will light up. You get a flash out the front of the barrel. And the wiring for that is just going to go right through these channels and around the speaker. You've just got a channel here that basically goes from where the speaker is going to live, and this can accept speakers up to 30 millimeters, which is not bad. You can always cut a little bit more out of this if you need to, but up to 30 millimeters for the speakers, and you just route it straight back to where the amp lives, which is not too far. So you shorten this distance to about an inch, which is pretty good as far as the signal's concerned, I think. And that should, thankfully, print as one nice, solid, complete piece, and I've actually got it printing now. Just as a test piece, because I wanted to see if the 3D printer could handle this kind of knurling texture. I really am pushing my machine to its limits with this, and I have to say, from what I'm seeing so far, it looks like it's coming out pretty well. Alright, let's go talk about the flashlight mount for a second down here. We have, I'll turn both parts of it on. Just like the rest of the gun, it is sectioned into a left half and a right half, and because I'm crazy, I wanted the whole thing to work. I wanted it to be kind of a visually impressive thing. So this is obviously a flashlight. What I've done is I'm going to build a ultra bright white LED into that, and I have these little neat toys, I guess. I don't know what exactly they are. They're lens assemblies. I found them on DigiKey. They're very small. They can accept a 5mm LED behind them. And that's just going to slot right in the hole in the front here, and you're going to have the LED behind it so that I can turn that on and basically have a flashlight. This part over here is actually going to accommodate a laser. This is a Adafruit laser, but I bought it off DigiKey. It runs between 2.8 and 5.2 volts. I've never actually used a laser before, but I took the dimensions of this, and I'm assuming it's just as simple as apply voltage with the Adafruit stuff, because it has a self-contained diode. So this should just be able to plug the laser straight in, and you can see if I just toggle the laser enclosure off, there's holes that go into the back here of the flashlight. This is just a little doodad. I'll probably hollow it out so I can put an LED or something in it because, you know, lights on everything. So let's go ahead and toggle this off real quick on this side so you can see what's going on the inside. There are cutouts here for two smaller slide switches, which I think I have here. No, I don't know where that layer went. Slide. Doesn't matter. The slide switches will sit in here, and one will turn on the flashlight, one will turn on the laser. And this whole thing, if you'll notice, is actually, I can switch this off so you can see, designed to slide on to the mount, the mounting rails on the bottom of the gun. Where are my layers? Here we go. I don't know if it will actually do that. Worst case scenario, you can always just sandwich it around the gun, but I figured it would be neat if it would actually slide on and off. And there's a cutout in the top of the box for you to get to the wiring, the rest of the inside of the components, so that you can like connect this to your power source, your Arduino, whatever. As far as the rest of the features of this gun, there are... oh, well, let's talk about the sights. Up in front here, I actually found some really interesting square LEDs. If you look at this on the camera here, I have no idea. I found these on DigiKey, but I purchased these from a surplus store. I guess they're meant for like bar graphs or something along those lines. I'm not really sure. But they diffuse light in a square shape. And when you look at the Smart Pistol design, it has lit up yellow sights. So what I decided to do was I wanted to take this thing, the square thing, and it's got a cutout here right up in the front sight, so you can just kind of lay this in and sandwich it between the two parts, and then you'll have a glowing front yellow sight. Let's switch that on like that. So that fits right in there. And then on the rear sight, if I toggle this back on, there's also a cutout right here. So basically the idea is just going to be you take the gun and you have two glowing illuminated sights that turn on when the gun is turned on, and you just have to line them up down the body of the gun, which I thought was pretty neat. It's not quite exactly the same as the game model, because the game model has these side triangles glowing, but that was going to get way too complicated way too quickly, he says, about this whole thing, with no hint of irony. With the rest of the gun, the only other really interesting feature that I'm pushing my luck on here is the screen that's going to be on the side of the device. It does illuminate in the game. It's got an ammo counter. What I've decided to do is I've taken these square LEDs yet again, and I'm building this thing. Hopefully, I can get this to light up, but I am honestly not sure. Worst case scenario, I'll just turn it into a static prop. But there is, if you look here, I'll toggle these layers off. There's a hole in the side of the gun here, and it's actually a channel. And let's turn on the wireframe view. You can see it goes in, and then it breaks to the left here. And that is for routing wires through the gun, and I'll toggle that off so you can see on the inside. Right next to those on-off LEDs, there's that channel. So it goes through the gun and out this side here. And let's switch that off. And there we go. So then it comes into the side of this little display, which should fit right onto that rail there. And this is broken up into three constituent pieces. We have the body of it. We have the screen, which has a cutout for the number 12, which is the max number of shots that the Smart Pistol has by default. And you're going to put two of those square LEDs behind this cutout thing, hoping that it will illuminate properly. And this little back panel is just so that you can get in there, because this whole thing has to be added basically to the gun last. You're going to paint the whole thing, you're going to assemble the whole thing, and you're going to have two wires just trailing out of here, and you just have to kind of pull them through, solder it, and then glue it shut, and hopefully you'll end up with an illuminated display when all is said and done. And like I said, if it doesn't work, then I'll just turn it into a static prop and, you know, make it solid, and it won't be the end of the world. But I figured if I'm pushing my luck with this gun, I better really push my luck with this gun, you know? That's pretty much the entire design. It is very ambitious. I can't promise that the final version that you guys might see the files for is going to be exactly the same. It may require a bit of fine-tuning, because I did the best I could measuring, kind of squaring everything up, but there is no way of really knowing how well this is going to work until you get to the point where you've printed it and tried it. I tried my best to make it intelligent and smart for printing, and there's components like you see these side pins, for example, that are not actually attached. They're separate pieces that I can print, so that painting the gun itself should be a little easier when you get everything closed up. Rather than having to mask off all these fiddly little components, you can just paint them separately, paint the body of the gun, and then just glue them together. So when I get a chance to finally print all of these parts out and confirm that everything fits together, I'll be sharing these files. I guess in the meantime, let me know what you think. I'm really optimistic that this is going to work. I could have done some slightly crazier stuff like making the slide move and everything, but at the end of the day, I'm quite happy with just a prop rather, with lights and sound. Thank you.